Hi, I'm David Quizzoli, President of the Southern Shire Business Chamber. We welcome you to our special keynote speaker event hosted by Mark Bouris and sponsored by Jones Partners. The Southern Shire Business Chamber is a member-based organisation, and congratulations, your registration to this event entitles you to a free base level membership to our chamber, including our monthly newsletter and access to free legal and marketing advice from Business New South Wales. For just $199 per year, you can have so much more, including regular networking to promote your brand with other members, and regular education and information through our keynote speaker events, and advocacy for businesses to local, state and federal government by promoting business and economic growth in the Southern Shire. If you want to know more about the benefits of paid membership and our supporter packages, check out our website on southernshirebusiness.com.au. Now let's all move to our keynote speakers event. Leadership is relevant for everyone. Firstly, at home through our parents, at school through our teachers, sporting teams, at many different levels at work and business. Leadership for a business owner can take many different forms and is critical if you have a number of employees. Our chamber is delighted to be partnering with Mark Bouris and Mentored to talk about leadership for your business with 3 local businesses in the Southern Shire. Let me introduce Mark Bouris, a serial entrepreneur who has made a career building disruptive businesses. Mark has challenged markets and provided smarter solutions for consumers throughout his entrepreneurial journey. The founder of Wizard Home Loans, Mark is currently Executive Chairman of Yellowbrick Road, founder of the Mentor platform and host of the Mentor podcast, one of Australia's leading business podcasts with over 4.5 million downloads. Mark's on a mission to pay it forward for all his 40 years in business to all those in the business community, and we're very grateful to have him here today. So with that, let's kick off this event by handing over to Mark.
So why are we here today? Well, we're here to talk about how leadership and planning are critical to both building and future-proofing your business. And I've got some really good guests here today. Everyone's aware of the challenges we're facing right now, but we don't want to harp on about that because we hear too much about it. We're getting fed that through the media. So we're going to focus on getting the right messages out to our community. With everyone looking at small businesses to lead us out of this climate, I mean, the Prime Minister keeps talking about it, the Treasurer keeps talking about it. We need to have great leaders in our communities to help those small business communities lead us out of this drama. We're lucky to be joined today by Frank. Frank's in the middle, Brendan to his left, and Dory to his right. And they're going to help us unpack this topic, this very important topic, a little bit more. So, let's talk about Frank first. We'll start in the middle. Frank Ferruggio. Now, Frank has 12 years' experience in the advisory sector and has worked in the Southern Shire region for 4 years. He's a senior manager at Jones & Partners, or a chartered accounting firm, who helps business owners and individuals regain, well, let's call it control of the business when they face a financial crisis. And I guess that's probably fairly relevant at the moment. And by looking after these particular clients, they build effective and probably, it's fair to say, tailored strategies to make a fresh start, focus on the future, and sort out all the gremlins that might be sort of trying to crawl over them. They also advise on businesses how they turn around their business, in other words, how they pivot, so turnaround strategy, pivot strategies when it comes to restructuring as well, and also succession when it comes to who do you leave your business to, whether it's going to be your staff, whether you're going to give it to your family, or for that matter, you're going to sell the business at some stage. So Frank's got a lot of experience, he's got a lot of stuff to offer today, particularly when it comes to how do we lead this country out of the financial crisis that we are in as a country by helping our small business owners. Brendan's to Frank's right. Brendan's an experienced chartered accountant as well, but he works in a slightly different part of the world. So Frank's sort of more around, if there's distress in the business, how do I get out of that distress? Brendan is his business is more about looking after people who are already in business and just keeping them going. Not just keeping them going, but making sure that they concentrate on their business, and Frank's business concentrates on all the numbers. His approach to servicing clients is backed by 9 years of experience in the Big Four accounting firms. In other words, he's got a really broad range of experience, and he's got 15 years of working with business owners, and I dare say mostly in the Shire. Yep. And finally, to my right is Dory Corder. Now, Dory is a good bloke because he comes from Punchbowl just like me. He's a self-starter. By the way, he failed the HSC, which is very interesting because he's sitting here right now in this group. We've got 2 chartered accountants here. Both of them probably passed the HSC, probably had to go to university and do chartered accounting studies and all that sort of stuff. But he's up here sitting alongside them, and it just goes to show you that sometimes failure, it doesn't matter what it is, particularly in your normal sort of curriculums, creates someone who becomes and or has to do something to change the way they've done stuff to become successful. In other words, they don't go through the normal path. And he became an apprentice hairdresser at one stage. He's then was a professional basketball player after that. He started his own business. Now his business is he supplies corporate merchandising and uniforms to lots of well-known brands around the country. He has a great interest in promotional marketing, particularly when it comes to sports. He's going to tell us why in a moment. Fashion, music industries, and he's passionate about, really important thing to me in life is about mentoring everybody that is in the startup environment. So he not only mentors them, because one of the things that you get when you mentor startups is you get opportunities to invest in them, so you become an early investor. So let's hear from each one of them about what they do from themselves. So Frank, tell us a little bit about what you do, mate.
So with what I do is help basically businesses. They're in a little bit of difficulty. They're not sure where they need to go. They're looking at the numbers. They just don't look right. They just don't sound right there. And they need a solution, and they need somebody who actually can give them the specialist advice that they can't get from anybody. So I'll be introduced to a business, sometimes for individuals as well, who think, well, what do I need to do? And I help them find that solution and give them almost what they can see is going to happen on the other side.
So, I mean, like for example, let's say I had a business and the revenues weren't matching the expenses. A lot of people, by the way, don't even know that when they're in business. They're just running up the expenses, they're hoping the money's going to come in, and they, at some stage the bank taps them on the shoulder and says, look, there's a drama here, come and see it. So you're in overdraft. And then they use their credit cards and they get themselves into all sorts of drama.
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about here? Like, do you sit them down and sort of say, okay, let's build a budget, or what do you do in these environments? Is that the sort of client you're talking about?
Yeah, well, that's right, and a lot of times it's at the other end of the spectrum, so they're already started spending more than they've been earning.
Yep.
And what they've been looking at a lot of times is they're looking at the overall turnover rather than looking at that net profit. So it's about looking, okay, well, where did your money go? Where did it go, and what do we need to do now? Do we need to try to do a whole restructure of the way you do things? And if we can get in there early enough, then we can help prevent the whole insolvency situation where they need to actually formally appoint. And that way it helps them, find an understanding of, okay, well, where's all their money going? Because a lot of times it comes back down to the planning and the budgets that they should have set in the first place. And when they don't know that turnover or their sales, which you mentioned before, it's because they probably haven't got a plan in place. They haven't set that budget in place where they can just keep going back to make sure they're hitting those targets they previously set.
And you just hit on an important word, targets. I mean, I know lots of people in business who don't even set targets because and you can't set a target unless you know what your costs are. You can't set a target, once you know your costs, you can't set a target unless you know what margin you need to be charging on top of that. And in order to, that becomes your price. And then in order to charge your price, you've got to know what all your competitors are charging, because there's no point you saying, well, my costs are 100 and I need to make 20%, so I'll charge 120 when all your competitors are charging $100 or $80. You're going to go out of business pretty quick. So this is about planning and about actually understanding and research and understanding important concepts like your cost of goods sold and understanding, they sound like boring things. They are a little bit boring in some respects once you're on top of them, but right at the beginning they're not boring because they're fundamental to how business works. And if you don't know them, you'll end up in distress. And can I ask you a question? In terms of distress, are you seeing, we're going through a pretty tough period, we're in a recession at the moment, are you seeing more clients reaching out to you, do you think, or do you expect you won't see that until sometime next year, or has there been any change, any blip?
Look, I'm seeing the clients that have reached out to me, they probably would have reached out to me whether or not this current situation happened, because it's other forces that have caused their distress. I'm seeing that it will be more closer to the next year with the government initiatives, with the JobKeeper and other monies that have come in to help businesses. Some have basically continue to trade only because they're getting those incentives, so they haven't stopped. Then there's others which are holding off. They're not really wanting to push that trigger and be the first one basically doing it. But there is a lot of stress out there, a lot of stress, and there's a lot of financial stress with people just not sure what to do. And what I want people more to think about is it is going to be there in the future. Now's the time to plan for it. You might be doing okay now, but if you're not building up some cash reserves or making a plan of when you need to start paying your mortgage, when you need to start paying your rent again because you've been given a break for 6 months and the government incentives for your staff payments is going to stop, you're really going to suffer. It's almost going to be like, hey, what do I need to do? Basically.
Don't wait until it's too late.
Yeah. And that prevention is much better than cure with anything. And if you're not getting the right advice now, you're almost going blindfolded into that future. And you can pretty much plan what you're going to be like in 6 months' time. There's going to be some differences. You may not sure what to do. But if you can plan it properly and plan for the worst case scenario, anything better than that, at least you're going to be, you know what you're going to do.
It's interesting, and I'll talk to the other guys in a second, but I just want to make a general comment. In 2018, I chaired the federal government's task force into digitisation of Australia. In other words, small businesses in Australia. That is getting small businesses to use digital means and/or technology to drive their business and to be less reliant upon. I don't think anyone does this today, but a cash book, for example, and ticking off against bank statements. But using digital means to run their businesses in every aspect, not just what you guys are talking about now, like zero accounting or MIB or whatever it is, or budgeting, but also, how you merchandise and how you use digital means to, market your business more down your territory, Dory. And one of the things that came out of this inquiry was the most trusted advisor. We spent 3 months on this and like a considerable amount of research, like a lot of research across Australia. The most trusted advisor by a country mile for business owners in Australia is an accountant. So you two are considered to be the most trusted advisor for your clients. Your clients will turn to you every time, not their lawyer, not their mortgage broker, you're not their mum or dad or their brother or sister, not some engineer mate of theirs, but they'll always turn to their accountant for help. And to me, accountants, it's nearly an obligation on you, like an ethical obligation on you, to help small business owners when they're your clients. Not just, oh, well, here's your accounts and I'll lodge your tax return. Like that's what the old accountant used to do, the old style accountant does. You guys, a couple of young guys, old school accountant, you came and see the accountant, you filled your tax return, you lodged it in a story, you didn't talk to it again. Next thing. But really now we're going into the business environment, which is where you guys are pivoting your businesses to. How can I help small business owners, in the case of you, Frank, recover from some sort of stress and or plan so they don't get into that stress? And in your case, it's about making sure that my clients, my small business clients, actually are running a good business. Like a high quality business, the best they can be. It's probably the most important thing in a financial sense. So, I just need to make that observation because I think it's a really important observation. For everyone listening to this, accountants are the most trusted advisor there is in this country, bar none. So don't feel bad about talking to your accountant. In fact, speak to your accountant to get advice from him. So, Brendan Lucas, I want you to tell me a little bit about your business and what you guys are doing in your firm.
Yeah, so I'm at Hopscotch Accounting. So we run a team where basically we are the back office. We are the accounting department for small business.
Explain that, because every business needs an accounting department.
Yep. So sometimes small business, you might have one person. They'll be the bookkeeper. They're also the office manager. So they don't really like to do the books, but they're doing the books. And they don't really understand the books. And what happens 12 months later, the accountant gets the numbers, goes, that was wrong, we'll fix it all up. Showing a profit all year, all of a sudden you're now showing a loss. Well, shit, that's a bit late. We're 12 months down the track. So what we found is a lot of small business, they either had a bookkeeper who was doing their best but just didn't quite know what they're doing and that business needed a little bit more, or they were going the other end of the scale. They had this CFO who was knew everything, but they were paying top dollar when half the time all they did was do debits and credits of a general bank rec.
Read creditors and made payments and collected invoices. Yeah. So that's an interesting, and I in various businesses over the years I've been involved like that. So that's quite interesting because and I'm not putting bookkeepers down, bookkeepers are really important, but a bookkeeper, if your business doesn't need a full-time bookkeeper, you're paying, you know, $50, $60 an hour for a bookkeeper in your business, then you will actually end up getting him to be an office manager or do a whole lot of other jobs, answer phones, all that sort of stuff. And you're either going to get you're not going to get a very good bookkeeper because a really good bookkeeper doesn't need to do that. Or alternatively, they're going to get bored with the job. They're going to think, what are you employing me here for? On the other hand, if you go off and find yourself someone like who's a chief financial officer or maybe even less, you know, what's the next rung down from a CFO?
Finance manager or whatever word they want to put in front of it.
You're going to pay a lot of money for those people. They're very expensive, and it could end up becoming one of your single biggest costs in your business as an employee. And one of the things we're learning right now out of COVID is we've got to, you know, our revenues aren't going to be as high maybe during the recession period, if that's what we're in, because, you know, you would expect growth to be lower, and as a result of growth being lower across the board on average, revenue is going to be lower. If revenue is lower, there's only one thing you can do is reduce your costs. You can't push revenue to be higher if there's people got less money to spend. I mean, you can only go with the system. You know, system growth is, you know, you might be able to do better than system growth, but generally speaking, you're not going to do much better than system growth. You know, you can't, if you're in the mortgage industry, I can't make mortgage growth at 10% when the whole market's only growing at 5%. I might get 6, I might get 7, but I'm not going to get 10. So all I can do, if I'm used to running at 10 costs, if I'm used to running costs to maintain 10% growth, and if all of a sudden I've gone back to 5% growth, which is where we are at the moment in terms of this recession, I've got to reduce my costs. It's pretty simple. Yeah. So one area I can reduce my costs could be in my accounting department. So that's what you're talking about, Brendan. Is that
100%.
Yeah, okay.
So, and look, again, being a younger person, I love my technology. You know, using Xero, Cloud, MyOb, all the different add-ons available. You can automate a lot of this stuff now. You don't need to spend hours number crunching it all out. So we automate it, get the technology to do the hard, boring work, and then we can come in and analyse and actually give the information to the business owner so they actually can make informed decisions rather than just going off gut feel. Now, gut feel is often right, but sometimes it's wrong, and by the time you know it's wrong, it's too late. If you had the numbers to start with, you can make the right decision.
So it's about decision making. So Xero, a really important thing here, and I don't know if everybody knows this, but today, a lot of times when you go to get a loan approved, it might be a small business loan, not a mortgage. I'm just talking about a loan from the bank to run your business. Generally speaking, the banks would like to get direct access straight to your Xero account. And if it's not up to date, you're going to be shooting yourself in the foot. It's a big issue. So, I mean, I think and you can get these things for fairly reasonable fee structures too. I mean, you're conscious of the fact that small businesses are trying to manage their costs. So, because you're using technology, your business is using technology, you can sort of pump it out at pretty good pricing, and your charge out hours are probably just on the reviews.
We don't have timesheets.
Yeah.
Because how can you? Again, we're supposed to be a trusted advisor. I don't want to not make that phone call because it might cost me $50 for the email or the phone call back. So we flip that on its head and go, well, here's our retainer. This is, if you need us, we're here. If you don't need us, that's fine. But most of our clients love it. They talk to us, and then we can help them. And then, you know, if you look at employees, the alternative is a fixed cost. So how can you then go, well, we don't want to do it in-house, we want to do it out-of-house, but then we don't know what the cost is going to be each month. How do you plan? How do you budget?
So you do it on a retainer.
Do a retainer.
So you become like their partner.
Yeah.
You're their.
So we're doing monthly board meetings. We're going through the numbers, talking to the owners, you know, regularly throughout the week. Especially now with all the cloud technology, Zoom and whatever, you know, might as well be sitting around the corner. You can share screens. It's no different. So I've got, you know, I started off with a lot of local businesses, but now I've got clients all across the eastern seaboard, just because of name and referrals. And you know, I can work with people in Brisbane. I don't get to see them as much in person with everything going on, but I can still deliver what they need.
So, Dory, I find interesting you just quickly tell us about you, because I'm actually curious about your basketball background for a start, and you have an interest in a basketball team.
Yeah. Look, my background's, I started off as a hairdresser, as you said earlier on, but I've co-founded DK and Blue, so we're a market leader in corporate merchandise and branding. I was probably one of the earlier ones to sort of go to China at a young age. Went there at 24 and opened up an office in Shanghai. So it was a very closed market dealing with China. So we forged a good footprint at a young age, and for me, that's what sort of set the benchmark of our business. We import over 4,000 products from China with over 200 factories we deal with directly. We deal with multinationals locally.
When you say merchandise, what are you?
Clothing. Yeah.
What's that mean though? Like,
So branded products. So
Yep.
we'll do a lot of stuff. With Microsoft, Samsung, Aussie Home Loans.
so t-shirts, for example.
T-shirts, umbrellas, mugs, in a simpler term. But
Yeah.
we develop brands, we develop concepts, we develop products, we custom make it. We have the license for John Deere, as well as with the uniforms of Red Rooster. So we don't just sort of sell products, but we design, develop, concept, produce, market, import it. So mate, from my end, I had no understanding of that business until I started it from my parents' garage, and and grew from there, and just started, I guess, growing our business, and from there on in, I started investing to other companies.
Can I know about the basketball though?
Basketball, yeah, look.
Punch bowl, we didn't play much basketball. That's all I seem to remember.
Well, I did hairdressing and punch bowl, so that's where I did it with my dad for 4 years. But look, basketball is my passion. I've played basketball all my life, and I was fortunate enough to play it professionally in Lebanon at a young age for a small stint. Played it, second highest level in Australia as well. And then from that, I guess when you succeed in business, you got you got the options to invest in something that you love doing. And at 32, I partnered in the Sydney Kings, got out of that, and now I've re-entered back into the professional sporting team and owning the Hawks in the NBL as well. So so now we're for us it's getting back into a sport. I guess through.
Well, that's interesting because I'm on the board of the Roosters, but one of the things I know that's really important to sporting clubs is you've got to get sponsorships and all that sort of stuff, and because you've got to make money. And you've got to be an attractive organisation, and merchandising is probably one of the most important parts of sporting code. I mean, I guess you bring your merchandising experience to that team.
Look, merchandise is one aspect. You got your ticket sales, as you would know, and look, the biggest part.
But people want to be part of it. They want to wear the gear, and they want to, show off a bit.
You want to feel proud of of your team. So look, merchandise is a big part, which will probably be an easy fix for us, with the Hawks franchise. But also the most important part with any sporting team is the commercial side.
Yeah,
and that's something that I'm really focusing, is leveraging off my experience in business and what I've done in the entrepreneur space is invest time into that commercial space, because that's the good thing. With the sporting team, you're capped at so many tickets you can sell on the size of your venue. So the uncapped market you've got is the commercial space. We can, there's an uncapped market of what you can sell. Whether it's corporate sponsors, setting up a new platform, for corporates to invest into the club, as well as merchandise. So it's spreading out your your asset pool of where you can actually generate revenue. Especially now, in the tough time we're in, you need to sort of be a little bit more creative with how you do things. So. And they're things that we always try to, is think differently to what the other clubs do.
But you're still involved in the merchandising for clients as well?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so what are you seeing, what's happening out there? What are you seeing out there in the marketplace?
Well, look, for us, when the whole COVID broke out, it was definitely a tough time for us, because, for us, it's all about events, merchandise, activations, and when the whole country pretty much shuts down.
And then China shut down too, because you're not going to get a lot of stuff out of China.
No, so therefore, you're at a standstill. So look, I think the government did a great job with, jumping really quickly and sort of putting in these subsidies and these sort of, JobKeeper initiatives, which was great. So it gave us a bit of time to sort of readjust what we're doing. So fortunate enough, being in China for so many years, we pivoted our business very quickly into the sanitizers and the face masks, and everyone was.
Oh, so you went into sanitizer.
Yeah, we did, yeah, and we're fortunate enough that a lot of the big corporates needed that, because a lot of them were front consumer facing.
So you already had clients.
Correct.
So you reached out to your clients and said, listen, do you need face masks or whatever? Okay.
So for us, we're fortunate enough that we had the database and the clients that were existing, and often the new service of sanitizer, face masks, and so forth. And at the start of the pandemic, no one had it, and no one could get it. Not the big multinationals and the big brands.
How did you get masks?
Just having footprint in China and being
connections.
Connections, being nimble, being small. Having dealing with so many factories. A lot of factories pivoted as well, when going from clothing manufacturing to face mask manufacturing. So we're fortunate enough that we've been able to import stuff where the big multinationals couldn't do it, and that was our advantage. Is being small, being nimble, that you can be reactive very quickly, and that's something that sort of helped our business sustain our turnover through probably the toughest time. And this is probably definitely a lot tougher than the GFC for many companies. So I believe the GFC was a walk in the park, considering what we're going through now with the pandemic. So, but it's being reactive and being quick. We're fortunate enough to be on the right end of the stick, and that's for us in business, you've got to be reactive and be nimble and be ready.
Well, Frank, I mean, the people like Dory here, I mean, he could have been someone. He could have been your client if he hadn't have thought about how to fix this. You know what I mean? Like, because you got staff. I mean, if let's say the government didn't put anything up to help him, and he might have sort of trying to work out how to get rid of staff. They're redundant. You got to pay him out. There's a whole lot of stuff going on there. But he's smart enough to be able to pivot and keep his. He probably had enough in reserve as well. But what would you have said to someone like what would you have said to someone like Dory? I mean, let's say he walked in and said, "Mate, cap in hand, the place has collapsed." Do you actually sit down with him and say, "Well, what about if you pivot?" Do you come up with those sort of solutions?
Yeah, it's a solution to come up with.
Do you have those sort of conversations?
That's an important conversation to have in the beginning, because it's not, get Frank involved. All of a sudden, Frank comes in, doom and gloom. Let's just, basically stop shop. There's always those options, and generally the conversations are with their accountant, which you've mentioned before. That is important because they're advising as well, and it's about, well, what are the options? So it's not just one option. I don't like being closed-minded and just think, okay, well, maybe they haven't thought about a solution, that someone like myself who's independent in there can give them that solution. There's and sometimes it's it's a bit hard for them to grasp, or they might be in a bit more trouble than they really think
they're also
they are.
so deep in it.
That's it.
They're not thinking broadly. I mean, sometimes it's really hard. Like if you're a business owner, you're thinking, shit, I'm buried here, and you're stressed out, and everybody in your office is looking to you to lead them through the drama.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just can't find our way through, and not everybody has the ability to sort of stick their head up and sort of over the parapet and sort of see what the gaps are.
Yeah.
Which is sort of what you've done. But and would you go and talk to your accountant? Did you talk to your accountant when all this happened? Did you just sort of sit and say, what the hell? Like, we've got our land tax coming up. We've got our, JobKeeper. I mean, JobKeeper's complex.
Yeah.
Did you go and talk to your accountant about that? How do I get that sorted? Like, how do I work all that shit out?
Look, honestly, no.
No.
Look, from my end, I've always been very hands-on. We've got internal accountants, but I will give my accountant a call. When I've got an idea or something I'm trying to think of doing, or how do I restructure this, and so look, that for me, my accountant's definitely very, very valuable.
But in terms of JobKeeper and all the various things that you're getting back, payroll tax, reductions, and all the PAYG stuff. I remember when they first announced it, they said you don't have to remit the tax or something along those lines. I can't remember what you guys had know it, but. My son, my second oldest son, does all our family stuff. He works at a chartered accounting firm here in Sydney, and I didn't have a clue. I just rang and said, "Alex, take control, mate. I need you to get all this shit sorted." Crazy.
And the ATO is super friendly, so if you've got on the front foot, you get deferral.
To you guys, for someone like me, I'm too scared to ring him. Like, I don't want to ring him up. Like what the hell? Like, it's scary stuff ringing the ATO up for business owners. Yeah. I just say to my son, but they talked. But you're right; they were very friendly.
We talk a lingo, and and I must say, to their credit, they have been quite lenient, and they came out very early with frameworks, and that helped. And I think when the people were in financial distress, they couldn't think clearly. They needed to go somewhere, and we copped a lot of those phone calls.
It was also confusing. Dory's lucky; he got it right, but still. It was confusing, and I thought, wow. And I kept hearing, unfortunately for me, I didn't get a lot of stuff. I didn't get JobKeeper because unfortunately my revenue wasn't down enough, and I was trying to work out. And I hear all these people saying, yeah, but you just don't take, don't bill someone this month or something, whatever it is, and try and I think, well, hang on, everyone else seems to be getting JobKeeper except me. And I started getting filthy, but at the end of the day, my son explained to me, Dad, you're actually lucky you don't need it, so don't worry. Because we pay in one of my businesses, we pay $4.5 million a month in wages, so JobKeeper would have been pretty bloody handy. Yeah. Would have been quite a lot of money, but we spent a lot of time, and at the end of the day, we had to defer to accountants. We had to defer and just do whatever they told us, and it was very important for us, to have that trusted advisor for me, to have them say, well, this is what you're entitled to, and you're not entitled to those things. On a personal level, land tax is a big deal. I mean, so we had properties where we had to say to our tenants, not going to charge you rent. The retailers, they just couldn't pay rent. And nothing, zero. We had one hotel that got closed down for 4 months. Yeah. Totally closed. So, we're the landlord, and they didn't make $1 revenue. So I didn't even know there was a land tax exemption. And then my son said, "Dad, we got to go. They've got the land tax. We got to sort it out." And in fact, we only just got we got the number how much we got to pay late today or yesterday.
Yeah.
But it's a significant reduction. It's sure I might be able to afford it, but at the same time I'm not paying rent. I'm not receiving rent. So I thought, well, hang on, it's fair that I get this because everyone else seems to be getting something. There's some people who get grants. State government have given grants out, haven't they?
Yeah, Service New South Wales given $3,000 recovery grants and all these different sorts.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, and that was the hardest part is, there's a lot of noise, a lot of different things out there, but then trying to cut through and go, well, that's cool, but is that for me or is that not for me? Because I'm hearing that so-and-so's getting it. And while that, you're also trying to pivot or trying to, keep your business going. So, that's where it is good. If you've got a good accountant or, advisor or somebody you can lean on, you can then stay focused on what you're trying to do for your business and let the accountant go and sort out the rest of it for you.
Well, it's because at the end of the day, my role as let's call it the owner of the business, or the proprietor of the business, or the leader of the business, my role is to make sure that we, with the greatest respect to you guys, we don't get too caught up in all that minutia, all that stuff, okay? I'd rather, and I think this is probably the best way for people like me, is to defer it to people like you guys. And Dory and I will get on with building the business and or pivoting and coming up with a big idea. We'll check it with you guys. We'll say, put it in front of you and say, this is what it looks like, what do you think? But we've got to come up with these, create these ideas and leave that other stuff to you guys. And I think, is that how you...
Yeah, no, definitely, yeah.
You've got an accounting department or something?
We do, we do. We've got an
so you
internal and
insource it, so to speak?
Yeah, internal and external, yeah.
Because even your internal guys, I got my Yellow Brick Road business, we'd have, 20 people in our finance department. But we use a big accounting firm for the technical stuff because it's changing all the time. It changes so rapidly, particularly when it comes to tax.
Yeah.
And I actually tell them, just check it. Everything they tell me, I say, go and check it with our external accountant just to make sure we got it right. Because what tends to happen, as I see it, is the external accountants, the professional external accountants, they seem to be up to date with the changes more so than the internal.
Well, you're dealing with it more often.
Yeah, and
Like
more
it's the same with you dealing with
differences.
freight. Like you're dealing with that stuff every day. I might do through something else one shipment. You're doing how many shipments a year?
Yeah.
You know what's going on.
Yeah,
so it's all about your industry inside and out, but you don't want to spread yourself too thin.
Yeah, and you can't have someone who's all things to all people internally. I think, anyway, especially when it comes to finance. That's a difficult thing. Out of the whole COVID environment, all the stuff that we've seen over the last 6-7 months, what are the biggest challenges that you've been confronted with? I'm going to start with you, Dory.
Look, it's definitely challenging times. Like at the start, it was definitely the unknown and probably the shocks.
Did you get scared? Not scared, but like, whoa, what am I going to do here? Or you just chill?
When the government said they're going to shut down the country or shut down the state, I'm like, it's just impossible. How do you shut down a whole, the whole country doing business?
You mean the borders?
Yeah, well, no, before that, shut down business. Going into a
you
whole
can't go to
lockdown,
work,
you can't go to work.
Yeah.
I shit bricks back then. I'm like, shit, what do we do? Like, this is, I've never experienced this. Like, I've never experienced where you shut down a business and you don't do anything. So I think at the start it was definitely frightening, and because there's a lot of disbelief what was going on. But I think the moment, you sort of get past that disbelief stage, you know what, it is what it is now. Now I need to sort of step up and be ready for it. So, look, I think at the start was definitely a lot of uncertainty, which was a fear that I think every business owner had. But I think it comes down to leadership, and I think,
How do you lead your mob?
just by being calm and leading by example, and not sort of, if you're going to show fear, it's going to filter down to your staff. So,
So what was the first thing you did? Did you walk into your office? You were always...
Communication. Look, it's more the communication. Just sat them down, said, look, guys, we're in it together, and this is where we are. There's a lot of uncertainty that we don't know, and I can't brief you on what the government's going to do. But, I think being on the front foot and explaining to your staff gives them a sense of ease and comfort that they've got a leader that's actually leading by example.
What about your customers?
Look, customers, it was, our phones rang dry pretty much very quickly when this all happened. So, getting in touch with customers as well. But from our end, it's just saying, hey, we're still here. If you need anything, we're happy to support you. But, they had a lot of uncertainty.
What about they owed you some money?
They all owe you money. But look, we were fortunate enough that we're dealing with, multinationals that you know your money's pretty secure. You're not dealing with a lot of.
You're going to get it sooner or later.
You're going to get it sooner or later, and that's why running a good business in good times and building your cash flow. When the bad times hit, you're not being dictated by the market. You're dictated to the market with how you want to run your business.
So what about your suppliers? People who supply to you. Well, what sort of conversations do you have with them?
Oh, look, it's been, for us, we've paid everyone on time. Even with COVID, we never use COVID as an excuse to delay payments. Because if you can keep them happy and you can, you're going to get that trust that if these guys have been right in the tough time and the good time comes, they're going to pay us on time. But I've always been very structured with how we pay suppliers. Whether you got money in the bank or you don't, you just always pay your suppliers because suppliers are your.
And how do you think that, Dory? Sorry to interrupt then, Dory. But how do you think that fits into your role as a leader of the business? I mean, like those decisions that you're making, those high-level decisions, driven by whatever's driving them. Doesn't really matter whether it's about relationships or building for the future, whatever it is. How important are those decisions as leadership decisions, and how does that filter back into your business, and what's the outcome, and what are you hoping to achieve in relation to the staff we might be seeing and will be watching?
Well, look, anything you do, you lead by example. Whether you're playing a sport or whether you're running a business, if you lead by example, you're going to give yourself more of a chance to succeed. And it comes down to your principles and what you believe in, and that's something I've believed in from the very start. If you look after your suppliers, look after your customers, it's a very simple model. You buy and you sell. If you look after your suppliers, they're going to give you a better price. You can pass on the saving to your customers, and that to me, we're a service-driven business, and we're all in service. We're all selling something. Whether you're selling your services as an individual, whether it's an accounting business or whether you're selling a product, it's all a commodity. But it's a deliverance of how you give that feeling to that customer, and how you make your supplier feel. And that for me, starting up my business from day one, the suppliers that took care of me when I started my parents' garage are the ones that are with me today, and the ones that didn't support me are the ones that have been knocking on my door for years to come. So, well, you've got to now wait on that queue to get into, to get into a camp of supplying us. So, but it's those basic principles, one-on-one principles in business that for me, I always believe the small things make big things happen at the end. And
little one percenters.
Yeah, they do, and
same in sport.
Yeah,
little one percenters. I might go to you two guys because, to be frank with you, I think. The pun, Frank. But to be frank with you, I think that that accountants have actually emerged in the last 9 months as one of the most significant advisors and or parts of it. And I said they were the most trusted, but they've now become one of the most significant parts of our economy going forward. I mean, people rely on their accountants much more now. They talk to the accountants much more now than they've ever spoken to in the past. So what are some of the lessons that you two guys have learned out of this last 8 to 9 months, and that you would like to, not about your business, but about other people's businesses, but you would like to, things you've experienced of good success stories and also maybe some failures for other people? Because, Dory's just talking about what he does. But you see lots of good ones and lots of not so good ones. What do you guys got to offer?
Well, on the good ones, I think the ones that have had a successful business, and that's been going for a couple of years, but they didn't spend all the money. So then COVID hit, and they had $2 million in the bank. They hadn't gone and bought a boat. They hadn't gone and bought another house, bought 3 more factories. They went, you know what? Let's save it for a rainy day. They're freaking poured. But they had some money in the bank, and they, you know what? And not all it was about looking through numbers going, well, how long can we last? Okay, we can last 12 months. Shit, no one else will be able to last 12 months with no revenue. We'll be all right. JobKeeper come along. Now we can last 18 months. Well, that should be all right. Where I've got other clients where they're already sort of running that line where they were making money, they pull it out. Their company bank account was their bank account, but they're two different things. So all of a sudden, COVID hit, the wheels stopped moving, and their personal lifestyle took a bit longer to adjust, and now their business is in trouble because their personal lifestyle doesn't match the business profits. And that even before COVID still was one of the biggest things I've seen is businesses, the ones I've seen, have often failed because their lifestyle and the business didn't match up.
That's important. And what about you, Frank?
Yeah, well, I agree with that. In old times, people are overextending. There with small businesses, they get in a bit of trouble financially, but they have a bit of personal wealth, so they're able to draw down on their mortgage increase the credit card limit, put some money back in the business and help them get through the next 6 months, the next 12 months. All of a sudden, they can't do that anymore. They don't have that equity anymore, and it's not as easy as it used to be to get finance either. It's a lot harder to get finance. No one's just giving out money, and if they don't have that turnover in their business or the asset base in their business to get these funds, then they're all of a sudden, well, what am I going to do? And what am I going to do in the future when their tax office, now they're starting a soft approach, they're calling it, to start working out how they're going to get their money back. That's not going to last long. They're going to get harder, and they need to work out what they're going to do. What I'm finding though is the businesses that I'm seeing that have basically an option on the other end where there's going to be basically a good side on the other end, they have those plans in place and have those plans and have been sticking to them. And there's been these external forces, which are what COVID basically has caused them, which was unpredictable. You wouldn't have predicted this 12 months ago, but they have had to adjust. They've had to adjust, but they'll come out on the other side of it as well with it.
One of the things I've learned out of all this is that you now got to run your businesses to expect the unexpected. Because I've been through lots of recessions and GFC and now this COVID thing, and I think that expecting the unexpected, therefore planning for the unexpected, I would never have probably said what you said earlier. I'm the sort of guy, stuff this, I'm not going to put my money away and leave it in the bank and earn 0.5%. Like, I'm not going to say I'll go and spend it on boats, but I will spend it on other things. And I'm not talking about expensive dinners. I'm talking about like investing in other things. I don't believe in having a lot of cash laying around. I didn't believe that, but today, I think that that old principle of the third cash, third assets, like that old principle of third, is a good strategy, because my gut feeling is that I'm pretty sure that we're going to see more often these unexpected things. That's what I think. Which means we got to have a lot of really serious, solid planning in our business, and we've got to tuck a little bit of money away, or at least have access to money somewhere, whether it's your own free cash flow or saved dollars or access to finance or equity or some sort of line of credit or something like that, just to get ourselves through tough periods. I think that my gut feeling is there's going to be more tough periods ahead, more challenging periods ahead. Not so much tough. We all don't mind tough. I mean, we just grind our way through tough. That's okay. But challenging, where what we are used to is the variables have been changed, and all of a sudden we sort of someone's instead of how many people on a basketball side?
On the court, 5. You got 14. Yeah, 14 within a.
Okay, the 5 on the court, and then all of a sudden you're playing against 10. You're only 5. You know what I mean? Yeah. We're going to the rules are changing around us, and. So I think that for me, planning is going to be critical. You're planning for. Don't plan for. Oh, yeah, we're going to have 10% growth. No, not that type of planning. Planning for what happens if we have a 10% drop.
It's planning to pivot.
And how do we make a change around that? And how can I reduce my costs quickly? I mean, what costs have I got that are non-discretionary, and then I can. What costs I've got that I can make non-discretionary today, so I'm not stuck on fixed costs. And we've been lucky during COVID. Government's told us we're going to negotiate with their landlords. Government's given us JobKeeper. Government's given us all these tax breaks. Government's throwing money around the place, but they're not going to be able to do that forever. I mean, that's just not going to happen forever. So planning for not disasters. I don't want to be a doomsday prepper, but I think businesses today must plan for 10% growth, but maybe also 10% reduction. Maybe you've got to have a discussion with your accountant or your accounting department, in your case, Dory, the what-if conversations from now on. So we do a budget, but everyone does budgets. We're just assuming 10% growth or 3% growth or 5% growth. Now, but why don't we just do another one as well that assumes 10% reduction?
Well, no one's done a what-if for what just happened.
Totally, and I think we need to do that now. Or maybe you go to your accountant with your budget, your optimistic one, and let's get a worst case analysis or a worst case analysis by you guys. And I just think you need to do it. And I mean, you might only need to spend a few hours with them, but just get someone to have a look at this and do a reasonableness check on it. Because, you know, you and me, like, I don't know about you, but I'm always going, yeah, we write 5% growth, no drama, we'll get market growth. Yeah, but what I didn't say is that the whole market's going to go backwards. I just assumed market growth for the last 5 years.
And you'll get a piece of it.
And I back myself to be grow as well as everybody else. That's fair. That's a pretty typical entrepreneur, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
What I didn't think to myself was, oh, hang on, there could be a 10% reduction. Well, what I got to do then is I got to back myself that I'm going to be reduced by the same 10%. And then all of a sudden, you know, my margins are very thin in my business. I mean, I have, like, you know, we do 1.2 billion a month, okay? But my margin is a basis point here and there, right? So we turn over 250 million, but we pay a lot of away to the people who work for us.
You've got a fixed cost there, which doesn't.
And there's a fixed cost, correct. So you can get caught with your pants down real fast. Now, I'm lucky because I started on this program of reducing my costs like a year and a half ago for another reason, nothing to do with COVID. I had no idea COVID was coming. But, and I got myself a good spot. But I was lucky because I started 18 months ago. So it didn't hit me. I was already ready. So, you know, our business, we had a record profit this year for June 30, and I banked 10 million bucks. So I'm happy. But it was nothing to do with me being smart. It was just me being reactive to a previous period where I had a shit year. And so I thought, that's it, I'm going to cut my costs. But what I've learned from all this is that I need to sit down and make sure that someone does a reasonable check on everything I do. And I think for me, if I have an accounting department, but I think for me, or if you're a small business owner, I think outsourcing that function to organisations like yours is pretty critical.
Well, I think so, Mark. It's that if you do that, because we're specialists, we look at numbers.
You've got lots of different people too,
you know,
not just one person.
Yeah.
Like I'm sitting in my room convincing myself, I'm giving myself a pat in the back. You know what I mean? Good on you, mate. It looks good. That's a good budget. Whereas you guys say, that looks like a whole lot of shit.
Yeah.
You know, like, what are you doing?
That doesn't help you in 6 months' time.
Nah.
Makes you feel good today, but in 6 months you go, oh.
I need to hear that now. I think small business owners need to hear it now. And you might say, look, there's all these incentives or all these government grants. There's all these things that you're missing out on. Where is that coming into the game? Like, I never even heard it. I've never got government grants or those sort of things. All of a sudden, it's a whole new world, all this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, like...
Well, I learned, you know, a couple of years ago with R&D grants. That you can actually get money back for designing a product.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Great. I'm like, you know, we're definitely going to be applying. So now we do a lot of that.
But you become an expert in it.
Yeah. So
And that's sort of work in the game. I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with it. The government put it out there. That's what it's all
I
about.
want people to do it, right? They want to create new
Correct.
things.
Yeah.
But you need someone to, if you're not any good at this stuff, and you're just good at your particular skill that your business is selling, you might be the barista, and you're really good at making coffee, you better... Those other things that you've been ignoring, you've got to get someone else to look at them. And I can tell you right now, you can't afford to put a CFO on there or whatever those other people are called. But, you know, your bookkeeper, don't expect your bookkeeper to be able to do it. There's a pretty extraordinary bookkeeper who knows that sort of stuff. So you need to outsource. And I would say to everybody who's listening to us today, an important thing is once you have that discussion with your accountant or your advisor, don't leave it till it's too late. Do it now. Plan now. But I would also say that you got to be like Dory here. Like, you've got to start to be able to think about, okay, if something like that, as my accountant or my advisor is now telling me could happen, as possible, it might only be a remote possibility. It doesn't matter. What would I do then? And what are the lessons that I've seen happen during the COVID period that other people have done? Say someone like you. How can I pivot my business into doing something else? You know, like we heard Dory speak at this. Webinar today about using his contacts and his ability to manufacture and his ability to get all the logistics sorted and get things fulfilled for his clients. Fulfillment's an important point. Execution. He went and got masks done. He did masks, and that probably, you know, earned him a few dollars for that. That got him through this period. How can I do something like that for my business? What would I do if I was confronted with the same thing? That's sort of what today's about. And that's what leadership's about. Leaders are there to lead us through the drama. Not the, you know, sometimes we can make mistakes and take us into the drama, but we've got to lead ourselves out of the drama too. Not to sit there and get blamed for it. And you guys probably see this all the time. You know, people sit and start blaming themselves.
And that doesn't fix the problem. You need to get on with it and work out what you're going to do from there.
Yeah, and I mean, we do sit around and whinge and complain a bit, and we feel a bit stressed. I mean, I get, you know, Dory said he got a bit nervous there for a while there, but a really good leader will at some stage give themselves an uppercut and say, okay, come up with a solution.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's
Thinking
right.
outside the box, and that's why you got to, it's business.
What can I do?
Yeah,
What can I do to survive right now?
yeah, definitely.
And, go on,
Yeah, I
Frank.
was going to say, it is all about the solution. It's easy to complain and sit there and think, oh, poor me, and what am I going to do? But if you really find that solution, that's where it's going to be. And sometimes you need other people to come
Totally.
and give you that uppercut. Like you say, you give yourself an uppercut. Sometimes you actually need somebody to do it for you.
Yeah.
Because you're a bit oblivious, and you might be, even if you might be doing a fantastic job, but if you haven't planned for something that you don't know what's going to happen, then that's where you need that someone to say, well, come on, stop dreaming, come bring it back in. Let's even make this even better than what it is now.
It's
You can get
interesting,
that.
like you're right, because too often blokes like me and Dory, we tend to think that we know everything because we've been doing a good job. It's good to have someone, I got partners in my business who do this for me, but like if you're out there as an entrepreneur, one of the things that makes a good entrepreneur is actually back themselves. Okay, but that's also a negative thing. It can be a bad thing, and
Could be, yeah.
yeah. So it's good and bad. You know what I mean? Like it can work against you, and I've seen it happen. I've seen it work against lots of people who are great entrepreneurs. They're either going to make, $100 million or lose $100
Taking a
million.
big risk or a big
Yeah.
risk too big, and
Yeah.
And they're either going to kill it or not.
I've seen a lot of people like that as well.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, I did say give yourself an uppercut, but you're right, Frank. I mean, sometimes just talking, you trust your accountant. You don't feel like they're judging you, and going to see your accountant or your advisor, your accounting advisor, your financial advisor, just to get them to run a rationality check or a reasonableness check over what it is you're presenting. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be the bearer of gloom and doom, but at the same time, it's important. It doesn't cost you a lot of money. It's actually might just give you peace of mind. They might say, what, that looks pretty good.
I think that's the key thing. At times you've got this great idea, yep, but being able to convince someone else that it's a good idea, that should give you more conviction to go after it, or might have just give you a couple of little things to think about. You go,
Some refinement.
and you go, all right, now I'm good to go.
Yeah.
But why not? That's planning's all about.
Yeah.
Plan to go.
Yeah.
Plan to execute successfully.
Yeah, that's a good point. It just might help. They might just help you refine that very point. Well, guys, thanks very much. This has been great. I appreciate the various disciplines that all three of you brought into this today. They're completely different disciplines. We've gone from outsourcing people's day-to-day finances and to making sure that the business gets better, to helping people who are in distress and then planning for them to get out of the distress. And then we talked to an entrepreneur here who's got a good business and managed to actually come up with a great idea to actually push his way through all this drama. It's an important, it's important to hear for people listening today and or watching. It's important for them to see case studies, real people talking about real things. Not me out there lecturing them about what you do. But actual people who've done stuff. Real stuff. And so I appreciate it. Been great. Thanks very much.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Mark. Thank you.
Thanks for listening, and hopefully you enjoyed this.